Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. And we are kicking off Constitution Week. And so who better to have here than Sharon Snowden from the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's dispel myths right out of the gate. DAR, snooty blue bloods?
Oh, no. We have a diverse population in our membership. You know, everyone, as soon as they're 18, we have them, and we have them past 100. And we have all ethnicities. Mm-hmm. As long as they can prove that they were a direct descendant of a Revolutionary War patriot, they are eligible for a membership.
And you make it kind of easy to prove that. With more and more people going into their ancestry, you kind of have some records of your own, yes?
Oh, sure. Yes, we do. The dar.org website, you can go on there and you can look to see if your ancestor is on there.
Wow.
If you have an idea of who you descend from. And a lot of times, if they're already proven, that's the less proof that you have to provide. So it's good to go onto the website and see what, search around it and see what's there.
Everybody loves playing that game, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. This is like even less degrees, or however many degrees of a Revolutionary War patriot, and there you go. And if they're already there, all you have to do is hook into that line, and you're already in.
That's correct.
And it really, I think people would be surprised to know. I mean, once you go back a couple of generations, a few generations, a couple of grandparents, sets of grandparents,
right?
How many people you are connected to?
A lot of times, if someone will give, one of the genies, and I am a certified genealogist consultant through DAR, but if somebody gives me their first 3 generations, names, dates, places, I can pretty much look and start the research. I've met people out. One fellow up at the MAPS, we were up there for a table, and he stopped by the table, and he wanted to know. And I said, well, give me some information. And I started searching, and I said, yes, you have a Revolutionary War patriot.
Oh, that's so cool.
He says, well, I want to join SAR, so.
Very, very cool. Well, what's involved if a person joins then? What's required at that point?
Well, what's required is that you have, a full application with your documentation, everything linking each generation to the next. And then there is a application fee, and of course there's dues for the national and usually your chapter in the state. But a lot of times people will join. We have members in our chapter who are not active. Mm-hmm. They love being a DAR member, but they're not active. And then we have ladies that really are active in the community and want to do things with the veterans, with Constitution Week, and, different things that we're involved with, community service.
And that's why you're here today, because It is Constitution Week,
right.
And you've got some things going on. So before we get into the Constitution itself, let's talk about the week. What's happening?
Well, that week, now, Constitution Week goes September 17th through the 23rd. Mm-hmm. On the 17th, I will be at Fraser Elementary talking to 3 groups of first graders about the Revolution and the Constitution.
Neat.
Then on the 18th, I will be at Worsler Elementary, and I'll talk to the 3rd graders. So it's a little bit different program, but talking to the 3rd graders versus the 1st graders. Mm-hmm. But I'll be talking about the Constitution. I take activity sheets with me for them, word searches, mazes, things like that, fill in the blanks. So the children get a little bit of education on that. On this, backtrack to the 17th, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Bells Across America. That's when you request your church, city halls, and things, places that have bells, to ring bells at 4 o'clock, because that's when the Constitution was signed.
Oh, at 4
Eastern
o'clock
time.
on the 17th.
Eastern time.
So
yes.
stop what you're doing and listen.
Right.
At 4 o'clock.
Right. So that's what we call bells across America.
Nice.
Now I've taken and I'll take those into the school with me, little jingle bells. And just so the children have something to ring.
And they can ring them at 4 o'clock.
Yes.
And
yes.
the bus drivers will be so grateful.
Right.
Well, that is so cool. And I'm wondering, what is the response you get from elementary-aged students? How much do they grasp of just how remarkable this document is?
Well, you'd be surprised. Some of them do ask a lot of questions. They want to know, well, what did they eat? What did they wear? And things like that. How did they get from one place to another?
Yeah, yeah. And what life was like in those days.
Right.
Some may have visited Williamsburg or something like that, maybe Philadelphia, and others would not have, and just kind of all in their imaginations. But we see these pictures of these powdered wig gentlemen and wonder, what were they like in real life? And you know a little bit about that.
I do. I have some facts that I'd like to, talk about with you today. Because one, in very... interesting person, because his name is not very common to people. His name is Gouverneur Morris. Now that's Gouverneur.
Gouverneur. Probably reading that, I would have just thought that was Governor Morris.
Right.
And that he just signed it as that, as if he had a title.
That's correct. People think that, but that is his first name. His mother was Dutch, and her maiden name was Gouverneur.
Oh,
so that's
sense.
where it comes from. So, he was a most interesting man. He had scalded his hand whenever he was a child, so his right hand was not usable. He also had a wooden leg that he had his leg amputated later on in life in a carriage accident. But he went at 12 years old to King's College. That is now Columbia University.
Yes.
And he graduated at 16 with, all degrees and academic brilliance. He was just a brilliant man. Well, he was on the Constitutional Convention Committee, and he wrote the preamble.
Really?
He wrote the preamble to the Constitution.
What does a person have to do to be famous? That is amazing.
Yes.
I've never heard his name before, but we all have to memorize the preamble to the Constitution at some point.
Right, yes. And let me just give you an idea. Here is the draft that he was given whenever he took it to write. We, the people of the states of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Providence Plantations, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, do ordain, declare, and establish the following Constitution for the government of ourselves and our posterity.
And then we learned that rewriting is the best writing.
Right.
He learned to be concise.
He took that,
turned it to
yes.
We the people of the United States of America.
Right. It made it 55 words. I
Oh,
believe
yes,
it is,
yes. And concise, but says it all.
And
Get it started.
And in that, the Schoolhouse Rock.
I love Schoolhouse Rock, yes.
There is We the People. And, I did a play a few years back with different times on the Schoolhouse Rock. And once those children learn to sing that, We the People, they don't ever forget it.
That's so cool.
They don't ever forget it.
Sharon, I've got to say, I kind of wish, I am not going to show much emotion here, but I really wish that our current leaders would sit down and binge watch all of Schoolhouse Rock and just remind themselves, what is the purpose? What is the extent of my power? What am I supposed to be doing here? And do that.
Right.
I think we've kind of gotten away from it a bit.
I think so. I think we've really gotten away from, what they're supposed to be doing. It's interesting that you mention that because when the Constitutional Convention started, there were 55 members. 70 delegates were required to go. However, they couldn't go because they had farms. They had work to do.
Sure.
So 55 started the Constitutional Convention. Only 42 ended up at the signing.
Wow.
And only 39 signed it.
Really?
Three did not sign it.
Because they objected to something
They
still?
objected to it, mainly because it didn't have the Bill of Rights.
Okay.
Which was added later.
Added later. How long did it take from start to finish to write it? Do you know?
In less than 4 months.
Oh, my goodness.
I know.
Oh, my goodness.
Less than 4 months.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, they
And
accomplished something.
There's 4,543 words in the Constitution.
Less than many bills that are presented today.
Correct. And that includes the signatures.
That's just amazing.
Everybody could sit down and read the Constitution.
Mm-hmm. And should.
Right.
Just to remind ourselves what's really in there. Don't take somebody else's word for it.
Right.
But let's read it for ourselves. And this would be a great week to do that.
That's right. That's right. I mean, things, we can talk about that in a minute, but, things like the word democracy is not in the Constitution.
Is that right?
It does not exist in the Constitution.
Because we're a constitutional republic?
Republic, yes. And Benjamin Franklin said, it's a republic, ma'am, if you can keep it.
Oh, my goodness. And there's the rub. We need to work on keeping it. And again, the balance of power was so brilliant. But you need to follow the perimeters that were lying out for each branch of government and what they do. Okay, who else? This is fascinating. Who else signed and was part of the very beginning?
Well, we have to talk about James Madison.
Yes.
Because he is the father of the Constitution.
Yes.
And do you know that he showed up early for the Constitution Convention, and he was the only one that attended every day, and he kept all the notes in a journal, everything, so that, he had everything. And that's what Gouverneur Morris and the committee took to draft the Constitution.
Wow.
So
does that exist? His journal with all of his notes?
yes, it does.
Where
Funny
is
you should
that?
ask. Let's see.
Well, you knew I was going to ask.
I have it. I have it somewhere here.
I'm going to guess maybe in the Smithsonian somewhere, but maybe not. Oh, possibly in one of the other Capitol buildings, or... No, I'm guessing wrong. Well, we'll look that up and find it out. But that does exist.
It is interesting, and it was sold after he died. That's why I was trying to look it up to see just how much it was.
So private ownership? Or is that part of... this is even getting more intriguing. But when you go on that 8th grade field trip and you're going to all the buildings and you're seeing these documents for themselves... there's something about it that connects you directly to that history, isn't there?
That's correct, yes. And, it's like with we researchers. We walk into a cemetery, and once you see a gravestone of one of your ancestors, it's just like takes you over. There's just something there. And like say, whenever you see those documents that those men created that has been in existence for 231 years.
Yes.
This is the 231st birthday. It's quite emotional.
It is. What are we looking at? Were there more than one copy of the Constitution itself? Because what are we looking at when we go down to, or help me realize if I'm confusing it with the Declaration of Independence? Because I know that I've seen these encased, and they're encased in maybe helium or something to preserve them. But are we looking at the original, or are we looking at one of several original versions?
If you go to the National Archives, you are looking at the original.
The one.
The one, yes.
My word.
And do you know that's it's encased, of course, and very well taken care of when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, it was moved to Fort Knox.
Oh, really?
Yes.
To protect it.
But it's been back since 1952, I think it is, back at the National Archives, so you can see that. And then, of course, there's a new Constitution Center up in Philadelphia, and they have a copy, and they'll run that, on that week, September 17th to the 23rd.
We're learning so much. We are visiting with Sharon Snowden. She is president of DAR, and it's Constitution Week. Stay with us. You're listening to Our Community.